And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek here, where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we're going to talk about URL encoding using JSON and shuffling table items. These are all tutorials that are out there on the Corona Labs blog, but we're going to walk through and talk about some of the finer points that are part of that conversation, and also maybe look at some code as we go along. So welcome to everyone who's here on the panel today. We've got a great staff of minds represented. We've got Dr. Brian Burton, who is author of several Corona books, developer of Coronium. Chris Byerly's here. Ed Marina from roaminggamer.com is here. I always want to say Sam Seaborn because that's Seaborn Games, but I'm not sure if that's actually correct. But we got our Seaborn's game guy here. Sergey, we got from spiralcodestudio.com, and we've got a lot of stuff going on here. So thanks, guys, for being here today. I'm getting better at remembering everybody's name, hopefully.
Yeah, we can really see that.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, I tried to do it like quick, right? Just put the Band-Aid off so I could, just run through it. Yeah. Next time I'll just be like, there's Bob and Mary and Jane and
some guys here.
some guys here, some regulars, some people who show up every week. I don't know why you guys show up every week, but I surely appreciate it. So thanks for doing that. So let's look at the lineup here today. What do we got going on? We got before we get into today's topics, let's talk about our announcements. We got a lot of great stuff going on in the community. Let's talk about that. So last time we met, we talked about Corona Geek number 115. Of course, this is 116 to today's show. But we talked about app marketing in China. And we kind of went through some of the highlights. We went through some Wall Street Journal stuff. We went some Bloomberg concepts and people talking about challenges you might run into in China and things like that. We also talked about spawning enemies. We looked at some code for that, how just to spawn objects randomly on the screen. And we also talked about, briefly at the very end, we talked about how to get your app listed as an iPhone 6, iPhone 6 Plus optimized app in the Apple App Store. So if you haven't seen that, if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, go over to youtube.com/CoronaGeek and listen to Corona Geek 115. Lots of great stuff there. And you can also check the show notes on coronalabs.com for all the links and everything that we discussed. And there should be a link in the video description on YouTube to that blog post, to find your way around. Also, Corona University, if you haven't been over there in a while, just a reminder, lots of videos. We're working on one right now for how to set up your virtual machine, your VMware environment for Windows Phone development. So if you have a Mac or if you're and you want to run and do Windows development on your Mac, then you can set up a virtual machine and do that. So we're working through that. Some people in the community have already figured it out, but we want to put up an official how-to. So go check out Corona University if you haven't had a chance. Just corona.com/university. Lots of videos over there. Lots of good stuff. Also, a place that's got lots of good stuff is burtonsmediagroup.com. Go over to Dr. Burton's website. You can find lots of Corona books over there. And through the end of the year, there is a promotion going on where you can save 20% on your purchases when you use the coupon code Corona Geek. Now, Brian, let me ask you this: not that anybody should be buying books other than Corona, but if they were to use Corona Geek at the end of their checkout process, would they save on all their purchases or just the Corona Geek books? Corona SDK.
It only applies. I believe the way I set that coupon up is that it only applies to Corona books.
Oh, really? You have that power, huh? You have that capability. Those.
I have the power.
Well, I was actually hoping that it would save them on all the books, but but you're the man with the plan.
I could be talked into that.
What's that?
I could be talked into that.
You could be talked into that. I think
No, I didn't think of it.
Oh, you didn't think of it? Yeah. Well, I don't want to discount all your books. I think you do a great job, and you put a lot of work and effort into it. But if I was just trying to encourage people to put more in their basket than they may think of, but But anyway, go over to.
It definitely applies to the Corona books when you're checking out. But I'll check and see if it's applying to everything. And if not, I can make that change.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Go over to burtonsmediagroup.com. There's lots of Corona SDK books there, and save 20% at checkout. So lots of good stuff. And poke around the rest of the site as well, because Dr. Burton's got a lot of great stuff there on a variety of technologies. So Clash of Clans. How's the clan doing?
We are slowly starting to grow. You know, we're not big enough yet to start raiding other clans, but it is definitely growing. We're learning all kinds of interesting things. I think the most useful thing is being able to pass information back and forth and figure out, well, how is this particular feature implemented? How could we do this safely and securely so that other people couldn't hack it? There's a lot of good conversations that are coming out of it that are going to affect game development for those that are wanting to do a multiplayer game like that.
Well, for those who don't know exactly what we're talking about, there is a Corona Geek Clash of Clans clan that you can join if you want. It's an open clan, and Dr. Burton set that up for us. Thank you for that.
We'll be large enough to take on the Uber clan. So.
Maybe we should get like the different platforms, the different gaming platforms together, different mobile development platforms together, and then we'll have like a Unity clan and a Corona SDK Geek clan, and and a Windows whatever clan, and we'll just go to war with each other every week. Have good clean fun. Yeah. So Chris is part of that. Brian's part of that, and it sounds like the group is growing. So if you're a Clash of Clans participant and you want to have some fun and learn some things, then go on over there and check it out.
So one thing on the Clash of Clans business is you have to play the game a certain distance before you can join a clan. Correct?
Yeah. I like played for 8 hours straight for like 3 days and finally made it in.
Oh my gosh. This is my problem. I would have joined a long time ago, but you have to achieve certain things in the game before you can even join a clan.
I just put my iPad like in front of my keyboard and just kept pushing buttons every 10 minutes.
Before you know it, you're ready.
Yeah. Well, as you're if you've never played it before, join the mix there, but also take notes, because just like Ed, like you're talking about, they have the tutorials. I mean, everything that you're doing in order to get prepped to be part of the clan is teaching you how to play the game and teaching you the different I don't know, just the different user interface pieces, but also the different concepts and stuff. So to me, it's like, okay, that's an interesting note. Also, the way that they bring you back to the game over and over again.
Yes. They use a lot of push notifications to give you updates when you received updates, but it's all things that we're looking at on how we can implement that primarily with the Chromium game server. So Chris and I have been doing a lot of passing of ideas back and forth. He's been doing all the work. I've been passing ideas. So I really like that.
The perfect relationship.
Yeah, that's definitely some of the stuff I'd like to talk about in the future, because I have been doing some prototyping using some of those concepts from Clash of Clans, and it's interesting, and it's completely doable, which is kind of cool. So
is there like are you saying there's going to be a Clash of Clans module or something at some point? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't go that far, but I talk about the concepts, and it's interesting because Clash of Clans, the great majority of it obviously is running server side, so it's interesting to kind of approach the development from that angle, trying to really break apart, like Brian was saying, you want to diminish cheating and hacking, so you put just the bare minimum on the client. The client becomes basically just the viewer, and you're just kind of sending messages back and forth, which is just kind of a different concept. For me, at least, for programming games.
Yeah, I think you got to make a good point there, because I've noticed that if you play the game and you set something in motion, like building a mine or something, or setting up some sort of elixir factory or whatever, as soon as you've kind of set that into motion, and you can close the game entirely, and then come back 24 hours later or 3 hours later, whenever the thing's going to be finished, and then it's finished. So everything's server based.
Yeah, at first I thought it was all timers on the server, but now it's just I'm pretty confident that it's just passing some timestamps, and when you open up your client, it just does some comparisons and it does everything on ratios. I'm pretty sure. Because if you set up your little area there and you log off, when people attack you while you're off, your game is actually at the state of the last time you left. So it actually isn't taking into account any new gold that's coming in. So they really simplify. They do some really clever shortcuts to kind of give you this psychological feeling that it's all happening in real time, and it really is not quite happening that way. So it's interesting. It's good stuff. I love it. It's the first game I've played that I spend more time thinking about how it's working than just enjoying myself.
So the other weird thing is you can't attack players that are online, so you have to wait for them to go offline before you attack them.
Yeah, and that again keeps it, even though it's quote unquote real time, it's not actually, because they don't have to handle or deal with any two players at the same time attacking or showing another player attacking you, so they kind of just wait till you're offline. It's clever.
That's like the reverse. That's the inverse of multiplayer. It's like,
yeah, no, it's real psychological. It's interesting. A lot of multiplayer stuff, though, if you read about how multiplayer gaming works, it's very perception based. Because the clients are in two different areas. What your mind makes up as what's happening behind the scenes isn't always what's happening. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's actually a turn-based game or asynchronous-based game. It's not running on a synchronous or real-time basis. So the psychological methodology that they've used, all that's really happening that's real-time is the chat server and checking to see if the player's online. Everything else is asynchronous.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's very clever.
Yes, I wanted to say that the only thing in Clash of Clans that is multiplayer is the chat window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's clever. It's really smart. As you dig more into it and start watching and studying the mechanics, they did great. It's a good job.
Well, it's like you said. To Sergey's point, the chat is real time, and then like you were saying, Chris, that adds to the perception that everything's real time when it's only one component of it.
It sounds like they said, okay, let's see, look at this mechanic. Oh, it's hard. Let's not do that. Let's do the reverse of that.
Basically, yeah. They stripped out as much as possible.
Which dramatically cut down on how much server is required to run the whole game.
Of course, yeah. No, it's excellent.
And you never get any wonky, people trying to do things at the same time and not able to keep up to date. And
yep, lag, all that stuff.
So I'm curious if you guys noticed, since we're talking about this, if you were editing your base, your walls, and all that kind of stuff like that. I mean, will you be attacked? Is there ever a time that you're attacked when you're actually editing your map?
When you're online, nobody can attack you.
Yeah.
Only time when you're not online, people can raid your village. So you can people making simple tappers for the screen, like they put their device on something, and there's something that taps on the screen constantly. So that doesn't let them log out from the game, and they're not attacked.
Right.
I love this because with the monetization, keeping you online longer, no wonder they're making all this money.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't put any money in yet, but yeah, you can see how it definitely. If you are the kind of person who wants things done now, you're definitely going to be putting some money in.
Yeah, well, the first thing that
protect it all. So
the first thing that I wound up spending money on, and I haven't spent money since, but the very first thing that I spent money on was adding an additional builder, because in the beginning of the game you get 2 builders, which if you try to enact some strategy where you have one builder working on some sort of long-term project and then one builder working on some sort of short-term project, that works great, but eventually at some point you do wind up with both builders on some sort of long-term project, and then they're both occupied, and then you want to do something else, and you're like, oh, I can't because all my guys are occupied. Yeah. Which really, in the very beginning, does make the game a little slower. So if you buy an extra builder, you can kind of move things along, and that's what I did. And then of course they have the pricing, because you had to buy gems in order to buy the builder, because you don't have enough gems. And then of course the pricing is such that the more you buy, the cheaper it gets, so to speak. So it makes sense that you're going to buy I think it was like the $10.
Yeah, that seems like
gem pack or whatever. So at the very least, you can pretty much bet, unless you're just ultra patient, you're going to spend $2.
I want to point out a few interesting things about builders in the game, because first time you run the game, they force you to spend your gems on the builder and some other stuff, so you are forced to spend your privilege currency. That is so to make it, to lower the psychological barrier to, oh, I'm not going to spend anything in the game. So it's a first purchase step they're making. And when you first see the builder, it costs, I don't know exactly, but let's say it's 500 gems for the builder. You see the gem specs, you want to buy them, and you can see that you can add, for example, 3 more or 2 more builders. And you think, oh, so will be enough, 1,000 gems or 2,000 gems will be just fine for me. So you buy this package for real money, you start adding builders, and each next builder costs more gems than the previous one. So it's 500, 1,000, 2,000.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And I would like to say,
Go ahead.
What?
It's kind of
yeah,
like
I would like.
they give you the pack free, and then after that, you need a little more. You need a little more.
Everything in this game.
You know what I'm saying?
Everything in this game is progressive, so everything gets bigger, everything gets longer.
Now that's
Some guy at this company has got a little thing on his desk that just goes cha-ching, 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 and probably just doing that all day long. I would personally if I had this company.
I would personally do that all day long.
Well, and one of the reasons why we're looking at Clash of Clans and the whole group that has created this is they are making $1.3 million a day.
Ridiculous.
Running this game. And it is, as Chris and I were saying at the very beginning, it's completely asynchronous. The only thing that's actually real-time is the chat. The demands for being able to start a game like this, to be able to build something that's multiplayer like this and be able to rake in this kind of cash is very low as far as a server implementation. You can do a basic cloud implementation through a number of different providers and keep that cost as low as long as you possibly can before you have to upgrade it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It seems like, I don't know, I don't have a lot of experience with this game yet, but it seems like the mechanics of the game, as far as implementation, are less than maybe the artwork that they had to put into this game.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. The production value, of course, is extremely high. I mean,
yes,
it's eye candy, and they got all the right sounds, they got all the right feedback. I mean, you're just loving it. It's that Candy Crush thing.
Another interesting thing about the game is that they put you straight to the game with no menus, with no play button. You just load it up, and it's boom, it's here, play it.
Yeah, I like that. I was noticing that too. It's totally different. I like it.
Yeah, there is the loading in the beginning where it seems like there's always the splash screen and it's always refreshing. But then after that, yeah, you're right into the game.
And the tutorial is merged into the game so well, and once that's done, you're in it.
Yeah, hooked.
Have you guys played? What's the other one? Same company, Boom Beach.
Have not yet. Don't have time.
I played it when it first came out, using a lot of the same mechanics that they used in Clash of Clans. I actually stopped playing it because of the one thing that I hate most in the world on mobile apps: interstitial ads.
Oh, really? So was that? But you had the free version, right?
I had the free version. I was playing the free version, and it was constantly popping up interstitial ads, and I just got tired of it.
Yeah, I think I'm on the I bought the game, so I don't get those. So, but I tell you one of the things that I've noticed is that it's definitely a lot of the shared mechanics but it's definitely a different feel.
Yes.
There's definitely a different tempo
Different
to the
graphic
game.
style, different a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah, but they borrow a lot of concepts from each other, and I just found that I don't play. I play both games back to back. I typically go out and I check Clash of Clans, and the genius of the psychology of that is that you have to check it at least once a day.
Right.
Just make sure that you're rated and find out what's going on and all that stuff like that. And Boom Beach has that same concept, so I generally bounce from one to the other, and then maintenance everything, and then close everything out. Typically before I go to bed. But Boom Beach is. It just seems like it has a different feel to it, and I don't typically spend as much time with it as I do Clash of Clans, which I think is interesting because again it's the same company. You would think they would be drawing from the same lessons learned, but the two games have very distinct personalities. So.
Yeah, theming I think is. I mean, obviously, if you get into kind of an RPG type theme like Clash of Clans, that appeals, I think, to a certain audience, and then that kind of more war battling kind of appeals to an audience as well. More realistic.
My first, I forgot the word, disappointment with the game was that when I saw the ads, I saw that people are fighting like villages. You like defend your village with your towers and stuff. And I thought it's multiplayer. I thought you control the towers and you can kill the opponent's units and some stuff. And it's, wow, that's cool. That's like multiplayer tower defense. I want to try that. But when I run it, it's nope. You can't. Just sit and watch.
Right.
Yep. No, you can't control.
Well, and that's almost an infuriating. I don't. In a good way and a bad way. Part of the game is that both games, in fact, is that when you set your characters off in a certain direction, after that they tend to take a mind of their own, and then so you really don't. You can only strategize for so long, and then once you've set them free, they kind of do whatever they want, which sometimes works in your favor and sometimes doesn't. But for example, in Boom Beach. Once you've set your characters in a certain direction, you can actually throw out flares, and those flares can kind of direct the characters where you want to go after the initial launch. And you have only so many flares that you can throw out, and you can earn more depending on what they do as part of their movement. But with Clash of Clans, you don't have any of that. You don't have a flare that you can throw or whatever. So when you set those guys off, they're just like, sometimes they're just like, what are you doing? You're like yelling at the screen, what did you do? What? Leave that alone. I didn't want you to do,
Come there and die. No, don't do it.
Yeah, which is...
you lose all of your characters too, whether any of them may have survived or not each time you play them.
Now, see, I don't understand that. And again, this is I think it's a grand experiment between these, and it's interesting to play both games because you get to see how different they are. With Boom Beach, as long as your characters don't die, then they return to you. So you launch them from some landing craft, and they hit the beach and they do their thing, and then after it's all over, you get those characters back. But with Clash of Clans, yeah, you don't get those, which is interesting.
Starve to death.
Yeah, which is interesting because you have to train more troops in Clash of Clans, which costs coins, and it's all resource based. Whereas in Boom Beach, they decided not to do that for some reason.
Which one came first, Boom Beach or Clash of Clans?
Clash of Clans.
Oh, Clash of Clans.
And about not being control your units while they're attacking, it's like whole mobile, how's it called, way to do things. Like one finger in control of everything is like this new games of racing where you can press single button to control your car, and it's just accelerate button, so it steers on its own, and you just control this the acceleration and braking. That's all. And it's fun for mobile.
Interesting. Total simplification of the concepts.
The new joystick will just be one button.
Yeah. Do you think that it would be? I mean, have you played that game? Is it any good? Does it keep you engaged?
The racing one. It's nice. It's like to spend some time on somewhere, so you don't get involved much, like in terms of action, but you're still entertained.
Huh.
And I'm assuming your acceleration obviously probably affects when you go around curves and things like that.
Right.
So you would need to.
You still have to think and control the car.
Right. Gotcha.
You still have the feeling like you are in control, but a bit less.
Yeah.
Hey, have you guys noticed that when you have your Clash of Clans up, if you don't interact with it for a while, it comes back and asks you if anyone's there?
Yes.
Chris, why do you think that is?
Well, server resources, you're connected to the server no matter what. It's just a matter of how much traffic is being pushed back and forth. And my assumption is just some pings that are happening while you're connected. But if you're not playing, it's just like Netflix. They're just they want that socket. They're gonna kick you.
No, it's not the reason they have the power to be online forever. It's just to determine if you're offline and you're eligible for a raid, if your village can be raided.
Right, they want to raid you too.
Mm. So maybe a little bit of combination of both. Okay. I there's times when it's like, I got into a cycle the other day where I was trying to do something, and so I brought the game up, and then like you said, I put it in front of me, and then I went back to working on something, and then I forgot about the game, and then it would say, "Are you there?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm here," and so I would hit it, and then of course it wants to refresh the whole environment, so it refreshed everything, and then while it was refreshing, I went back to whatever I was working on. And then I forgot about the game. I did that for like 15 minutes, just recycling the game. And then eventually I was like, okay, I just sat there and just stared at the game waiting for it to come back up because I was like, okay, I need to, like either do this or close the game entirely. So you can get kind of caught in a cycle like that. All right, well, that's Clash of Clans. That's our Clash of Clans session for today.
Discussion on.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. We'll just open up the show with a Clash of Clans discussion every day.
We can discuss some arbitrary games as well, like we play some popular game and we discuss mechanics and other stuff that we noticed on it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah, because exactly what we're doing is we're just discussing the concepts, right, that can be implemented in any game. So.
Well, I think more importantly, it's simplicity. The concepts really, when you start to strip back, the shine and the flash, you realize the simplicity-based, gameplay, and those are possible for almost anybody who has some coding server experience to at least try to create something like that. So it's not super complicated.
Whoops, had my microphone off. But it gets back to your point, which is the production value.
Well, of course, that's always to me, production value is going to be 33% of your work. 33.
It's going to be 133% of my work. It's out of the ballpark for me.
My ratio is 33 production, 33 code, 33 support, so, and advertising and marketing. So.
Wait a minute, where'd those come in?
That's the 1%? The 1% advertising and marketing?
Hey, I just want to make a quick comment. A couple of people who listen to the show who chat with me afterwards thought that Sergey and I were fighting last week. They did. Thought we were having like a showdown or something about what was it? What were we talking about? Oh, Chinese fonts. Anyways, I just wanted to just assure the audience that we're not fighting.
That's what happens when you have lively discussions about about things, right? Open discussions.
That makes them fun.
That's right. Mommy and Daddy aren't fighting. They're just using their.
And I don't always agree on the best solution, although I do like to listen to what he's got to say about it.
They're just not using their inside voices, is all. All right, well, let's move on. So we get to these other things. That's a great thing. I think it's a great idea. We should talk about some game mechanics and some different games and just explore different ideas. So we'll turn that into a regular part of the show. So one last thing here I've got is that Mike over at cravecreative.com has created a set of widget themes that you can get, all kind of different, bold and elegant and all these different colors and shapes and stuff. So if you are into that sort of thing, go over to cravecreative.com. That you can click on the navigation up there. We'll put a link in the show notes, but he spent a lot of time on those, and I think they're reasonably priced. And so if you want to customize the look and feel of widgets, and you don't want to do the development and the design work yourself, then Mike's already taken care of that for you. So go check those out. And where we are. Oh, and then one more thing is that this month, next couple of weeks, I guess, we're playing Dr. Spin by Code Delivery Boy. I don't know if you guys we had them on the show a few shows back, but Dr. Spin is basically this game where you move the device, and as you move the device, you collect zetas, and as you collect zetas, your score goes up, and then once your score goes up to a certain point, then you're able to unlock monsters and characters within the game. And it's a fun game. It's a different application of the accelerometer and being able to use that creatively. So check it out. You can see it at drspingame.com. We're going to play for high score, and the winner is going to get a $50 gift card to the retailer of their choice, and we'll announce the winner on December 1st. So that we can start the next Geek Games in December. So you have a chance between now and then to post your score to the Corona Geek Facebook wall, and then hopefully if you have the high score, you'll win. And let's get into our next topic here, which is...
One brief announcement?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, the Chromium cloud server has been updated to 1.9.2, and it now has been I've rebuilt the installer from the ground up for Ubuntu, so you should be able to now run it pretty much on any cloud provider that you want, not just DigitalOcean. So, and also decreases the cost on Amazon dramatically. So just want people, if they are using the 1.9.1, I recommend checking out the new version. It's been cleaned up, a lot of bug fixes. And it's a serious maintenance release, and then get people to go ahead and install that on different cloud servers. So
does it work on any Ubuntu or just LTS one?
It's only 14.4 right now. It's the brand new one. LTS, yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you offer this on DigitalOcean and AWS and all these different cloud providers. Is that just because did you do that just so that you give people options of their cloud provider, or is there a reason why they might want to explore one over another?
Well, the 1.9.2 will be the new release going forward. So the only operating system that it will be available on is either the Amazon instances, which are Ubuntu-based, or just installing it on your own cloud provider. One of the major reasons was, first of all, I'd never really played with Debian or Ubuntu before anyway, so I had started the whole project on Arch Linux, and I moved to CentOS, which is one I'm more familiar with. But obviously the most popular release right now is obviously just like Chromium GS. I just want people to be able to install it anywhere they want, and this gives the most options as far as cloud providers. And it's just a simple install script. You copy one line into your terminal, and it should do it all for you.
So basically, we're talking at this point. Then we're, like you said, your own cloud provider, which is, I assume, anything.
Yeah, any of the new ones, Vulture, and all these different.
Okay, and then of course AWS, just because it's the biggest.
Yeah, AWS is the route you want to go if you don't want to play with the installer and you just want to have a pre-built image. Then you just fire it up on AWS and it's all ready to go.
Gotcha.
That should hopefully. I get a lot of requests for people asking for it to be installed on other servers' boxes, and so this should hopefully alleviate a lot of that friction.
So it all comes down to what your level of involvement with the setup of the environment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And most of the cloud providers, it's usually a one-click to get your operating system up. So if you really wanted to just count it out as a simplified click, you probably click and then code, and you're going to get your Chromium cloud set up.
Sweet. All right.
It is. smooth and easy to do. I mean, as long as you're logged into your Amazon Web Service or whatever, and you hit the install button, I had to set up 15 instances for different students, and it was very quick, very easy. I had all 15 set up in less than an hour.
Well,
it was
farm going.
It was good.
Cool, and that's it for that.
So when you're doing the AWS, like later when there's updates and stuff like that, I mean, since you're using a package to install all that stuff, when you do the updates, is it easier to do the updates?
It's about the same on both. I'm using source control internally on all of the systems, so that it makes it real simple to kind of update the library. I've spent a lot of time trying to really build the structure out so that it's simple to update. That was my biggest mistake at the beginning. So now it's very simple. You just run it on the command line and just say update, and it's going to pull those things for you. And then instance, it actually, when you first spin up an instance the very first time, it'll actually go ahead and pull the latest files. So those are cool. I'm really happy about those instances because they auto-update just as soon as you install them. So you're always starting off with the most recent files, and then later on, all you got to do is just run a one-line update, and then you'll get the new library.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you, sir, for putting all the work into that. That's incredible.
Absolutely. Apps starting to mature after all this time, so it's kind of cool.
Well, it's come along so quickly. It's hard to remember what Ground Zero was like because it's
slowing down, which is nice. I'll tell you.
Well, it seems like from day one it was already hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like Greg Pugh from GP Animations is he must have gotten a huge data plan because he's here with us in his car, live streaming from his car.
Getting car sick, and I'm not even there.
Actually, just pulled into my house.
Greg, are you living in your car now?
Yeah, pretty much.
He's part of the tiny home movement. The Toyota.
It's Versa home.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, let's talk real quickly here. I wanted to follow up on last week. We talked about app marketing in China, and Ed, you had sent me a couple of links from Carter over at BlueCloudSolutions.com, and also Apple's internationalization and localization. And both of those were pretty interesting. I'll include links into the show notes, but real quick, I just wanted to mention that Carter had two things that he talked about. One was we had talked on the show about maybe translating all the different strings for the app and including all the different translations in the app, and Carter kind of backed out a little bit and said, okay, well, what if you just translated the the description and the keywords and the whatevers, right? Just the marketing pieces almost. And would that suffice? And if you were going to do that, would you have somebody else do it, or would you just go through something like Google Translate? And his opinion was that he would just use a Google Translate because it would be close enough, and the return would the cost of it wouldn't outweigh the return, and he'd be able to maintain it himself and all that kind of stuff like that. So I thought that was an interesting concept that he's going almost sort of the guerrilla marketing aspects of things. What were your thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, actually, that's exactly what we did when I worked with RealFX on their Baby Turkey Trouble, the Match 3 game.
Right.
So we started with the American market, and then once we got the first solid release of that out, we spent some time and just used Google Translate to translate the marketing material to the other markets. So exactly what he said there in the article.
Yeah. So it seems like solid advice. I mean, at least at some point you want at least to get someone interested in the app, and then from there, if you can see that you have significant interest in it, then you might want to spend more time and resources, doing in-app translations. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, everything in that game was straightforward once you started playing. You could figure it out without being able to read the, play button. Well, okay, play. I got that. It's like one of my few choices here. I'll click it and see what happens. So.
Yeah,
I'd still like to be able to put a few more in retrospect for them, a few more details in there in the foreign language just to make it a little bit easier, because there was still some text description in there that people had to understand to get a little more out of the game.
Well, we talked about that last week. We said, maybe you would standardize some of your elements and not necessarily have words, but have icons, or make it something that was a little more universal. And
what they did was really smart. Is they had words, but they also had visual descriptions of everything you had to do. So most people don't read it anyway. They just look and say, "Oh, swipe. Okay, good. I'm good."
Well, and that's what the Apple internationalization and localization link that you sent me actually kind of talked about that as well, about translating the user interface, making it to where key aspects might be specific, so like links and weights and prices and things like that. But then if you could create an interface that was, again, universal, you wouldn't necessarily have to spend as much time tailoring it to a specific market. And then the one thing that I thought that they had was interesting in here was they talked about allowing the user to be able to input information into the system in their native language. And this kind of speaks to what you guys were talking about last week with Chinese fonts or Mandarin fonts or whatever. Pieces of, like for example, if you had a journal app. A journal app may see, like a title, description, those types of things, and you could actually translate those into the native language of choice. But then the user input, actually adding in the content into the journal, would be good to allow the user to be able to put input in their native tongue. So the article just sort of talked more about that aspect of things, and I was like, okay, well, that's an interesting concept, because again, even if you could make a universal interface that anybody could understand, depending on what your app is supposed to be doing, you might still have to consider internationalization or localization based on the user's inputs. So I just thought that was an interesting add-on to that conversation. So I'll put links in the show notes to both of those. So thanks, Ed, for sharing those. I appreciate that. That was good feedback. Some stuff there I hadn't really kind of thought of. It was most of it was geared, I thought, to just breaking down the effort into smaller pieces and taking them in stride. Okay, let's talk about URL encoding. Let's get into that. We've got about 15 minutes left. We should be able to squeeze all three of these topics in about 15 minutes. Let's get into URL encoding. So let me actually bring up the tutorial here. This is off of the Corona Labs blog, coronalabs.com/blog. It's one of the weekly tutorials, and it's pretty straightforward. It just talks about this aspect of encoding certain characters like spaces or special characters or what have you. So let me share my screen. I think. Yeah, there we go. And so basically, I'll leave this. We'll just walk through the tutorial that's on here. I have a few notes someplace. We find those. And basically, I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the, like I said before, some of the key aspects of that conversation. So when you look at the tutorial, it gives you an example string. And so there's pieces of this that we would want to encode. And Sergey, you threw in some comments at the bottom of this tutorial that I thought were very relevant. But when you look at this query string, it's broken down into parts. So you have, like your HTTP or your HTTPS. You have your domain name. You have what page or what they call in the tutorial, the script that you want to run, and then you have essentially your query string, everything that appears after the question mark. So these are the parameters basically that you're passing into your script or into across to your to the page. So for this example, Q equals Corona SDK, I equals UTF-8, and then they're all these parameters are kind of tied together with an ampersand, which gets turned into either a hex value or encoded in some way so that it can be represented in the query string. So you get your question mark, your ampersand, and then your equal sign, because everything here is a key value pair. So Q equals Corona SDK, IE equals UTF-8, client equals Firefox, and so on. So that's your basic breakdown of a URL. But then it starts talking about, well, you can't have you can't have spaces, and you can't have special characters, and so those basically have to be encoded in some way and then decoded on the other end, so that you can pass the information across the wire, and it'll make sense on the other end. Because a space. Well, how do you represent a space as a space if you don't encode it in some way and represent it with special characters? Or a certain set of characters, not special characters. And then it comes down here and it starts talking about whether or not, when you're concatenating these things together, whether or not you're going to use a plus or you're going to use a hex value with an ampersand, with a percent sign. So, for example, if you have a space, those spaces might be represented by a plus, or if you have something like a space and an ampersand here, you might represent that with like a %26 for the ampersand. And then the tutorial goes on and talks about then how would you do that. So basically, whenever you're using the network library, before you pass these things across and actually make the network API calls, you need to. It says here that it's your responsibility to encode your information beforehand. And so there's this function that's provided. I won't go into all the details, but basically what you're doing is you are encoding the URL ahead of time so that everything is either turned into a a hex value with a percent or a plus or whatever. Sergey, did you tell us about the plus and the hex values again? When should we use one and when should we use another?
Plus is useful for query parameters. It was made so that inside URL in your browser it would look less awkward and it would look readable. However, when you're not specifying a query parameter with some encoded string, but it's some folder inside your structure, or you have such web server that accepts parameters in such form like slash and the straight parameter without specifying the query, all spaces must be converted to hex value %20 and not the plus sign.
Yeah, so I thought the example you gave was really clear that so here on the so you got your domain name slash and then your what we were calling earlier the script. If you had a space in between the name of that, so that some in your example you said some space action, then a plus would be incorrect there. But if you used a %20 to represent the space, then that would come across as correct. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So so then from there, what you were recommending doing string.url encode, and then equals require socket URL dot escape.
It's a built-in function. It's if you have some really big parameter like text, this should work faster.
Okay, so were you saying that you would use this in place of say like this function that was up here, this URL encode function?
Yeah, in my project I used the escape function from the socket URL module.
Okay, so there you go. So
everything is hidden from the user perspective in mobile ads, so you don't see these pluses and %20 signs. It doesn't matter which one you use, so I just use the built one.
So it kind of takes care of everything behind the scenes for you anyway.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so there you go. So if you're looking at this tutorial, definitely be sure to check the comments down below. Sergey's put in the code examples there, and it definitely simplified things. I thought made it a little, I mean, like I was looking at this function and I was like, what? There's a lot of stuff there. I mean, it's nice. It's a nice example, and it's you could probably tweak that to represent some other outcome that you wanted, but I thought what Sergey was providing was a simpler answer. But the one thing that I did think was interesting on this was that you, in this particular example, you were extending the string, the built-in string API, so you're actually adding on almost a method, I guess, to the built-in string API. So that was a string library. So I thought that was interesting. We kind of touched on that before, I think, in previous shows. But how often did you guys spend? How many times have you ever extended a built-in library in Corona?
Table all the time, string not so much.
Yeah.
Ed, what about you?
SK adds new functionality to most of the Lua basics and some of the Corona libraries too.
Yeah, I like that aspect of things because it's almost like not inheritance. What's the other thing? What am I thinking of, Chris? What's the word I'm looking for here in object-oriented terms?
Extending?
Yeah, I guess maybe extending. The simple word. Yeah, extending class to do other things, and then creating your own custom library. So some interesting stuff. So anyway, so there's that tutorial. Go check it out. Basically, the takeaway from that is that you need to encode your URLs before you use the network library because it's not going to do it for you. But as Sergey showed us, there's some there's some built-in native ways to be able to do it, so you don't have to worry about writing a bunch of code for it either.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in the socket library. You should definitely take a look at that if you haven't.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can get you to walk us through some of that stuff on a future show.
Yeah, or Sergey, which other?
Yeah. Either way, both of you. Yeah, we'll do dueling banjos again. We had Ed and Sergey last time. We'll do Chris and.
Oh man, I wouldn't last long.
Yeah.
Which of us was the country boy with the banjo? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. In this corner with a slide rule in his hand and a
grin on his face is.
We'll do the whole SmackDown thing. Okay, well, let's move on here. We got a couple more minutes. Let's talk about loading and saving tables in using JSON. So another great tutorial. There's a lot of different concepts in here that we'll touch on real quick. One of them is that how the similarity between Lua tables and JSON. So basically, JSON's JavaScript object notation. I think of it as the replacement for XML. I know that's not entirely accurate, but I never really liked working with XML, but I do like working with JSON. And as you said earlier, Chris, you are intimately familiar with JSON, especially with Coronium and the way that it works. And so one of the things that I like about it is that it's so very similar to the way that Lua tables work. So here in the example, it shows us a couple of different things. Here's the Lua table, setting up a superhero table and then adding in the properties or adding in the different pieces of the data. And then it shows us the JSON version. And really the only primary difference is they're both key value pair. It's a key value pair setup. The only really primary difference is that JSON uses strings on both sides because for serialization, so that you can basically pass the information across the wire and be able to serialize it and deserialize it as you pass it across. So basically, if you're going to pass values in JSON, you're going to want to use something like a string or a number or Boolean, something that can be represented and passed over, not something like an in-memory object or anything weird like that. So then it comes down here and it says, okay, well, what's the next thing that you would want to do, right? If you can do since tables are almost like arrays, what's the next thing that you would want to do? You probably want to do something almost like like an array, add an array into your table. So we can do that, of course, in Lua as an array of objects or array of items in a table, and you can do that same thing in JSON. So when you set it up, you're basically creating an array and you're kind of stuffing it into your JSON formatted data into that array. And then the next thing it talks about then was putting all that to work. That's great in concept. And it gives you the similarities between Lua and JSON, and then how you what would you actually do with that? And so then it talks about taking that information and like we just said a moment ago, serializing and deserializing it. So being able to format it so that it can be passed across the wire as a string of information. So in this example here, we're requiring the JSON library. We're setting up our Lua table, and then when we run it through, we're going to JSON encode it. So we're basically we don't really have to even know the inner workings of JSON. Corona is going to take that and encode it for us, so that we have basically a JSON string on the other end that we can pass over to something, and then when we want to decode it, we can actually just use the JSON.decode and take that same serialized string and basically break it back out and put it into a Lua table if we wanted to. So I thought that was I think that's kind of fun, because if you've ever looked at the JSON specification and tried to figure out how to use it in other programming languages or with other programming languages, it's a little overwhelming. But I think that working with it in Corona makes it much more approachable, especially when it so closely mirrors the way tables work. So, and then it comes down here and talks about once you've kind of learned how to manipulate and move the information around, then the next thing you might want to start doing is saving it. And a practical application of that would be to save game settings. So your music state or your score or which level you were on and things like that. So there's some great stuff in here. I won't go through it all, but there's some great stuff in here on things like how to create a global space so that you can save your global data. There's also some information in here on working with Lua tables. So, for example, in this particular example, we're creating a Lua table. We're giving it properties, but then we're grouping those properties together in using a table as well. So we've got like this my data, which is a reference to a separate file, almost a global variable, and then we're sticking a Lua table into it and assigning properties to that Lua table. So that's the settings Lua table almost becomes a whole object all by itself that we can reference, so that if we go to store that variable someplace, we can store just the settings portion in our settings. So maybe we have current level, maybe we have schema name, maybe we have settings, but then when we want to go to save, all we have to do is save settings, because we're only interested in saving the settings. We're not interested in saving all the data for that particular variable or particular object. So anyway, I'll leave it there. We're going to run out of time, but it's a good article to go through. I definitely recommend some of the sublinks that are there, like the Goodbye Globals tutorial. It's a short walkthrough on how to manage working with globals without stepping on any built-in toes, so that you don't overwrite any sort of global values that are important. And there was another link in here that was interesting or important. Is basically there's a GitHub repo to a library or a function that is basically a file for loading and saving data to your documents directory, so that you can save your settings for your game and stuff like that. And it's super easy to get set up. I was going to walk us through the code that I kind of I just went through here and just basically just pieced together some of the code that was here on the page and some of it that came from the GitHub repository. But maybe we'll save that for next time when we have a little bit more time.
So are we going to revisit this? Because there's a couple things about this that people need to understand. Common errors people make when they use JSON encode and decode.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that next time? We'll come back and do it next time, or should we do it now before we leave?
We should probably do it next time so we can do a code example and show people actually what happens.
Okay.
It's a little mysterious when people run into it the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, let's definitely do. We'll schedule that again for next time. Then we'll spend more time. We need to probably, like you say, get a little more in depth into code example and that sort of stuff. And we also have the other thing that we were going to talk about, which I can't remember at the time, but we were going to talk about something else, and we'll bring that into the next show's lineup as well.
Hey, Charles.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a request from the Corona IRC chat room to remind everybody that there is such a thing. So if you want to jump on and chat, and there's some people in there hanging out, so come check out the IRC. It's Corona.
I will put a link. I'll put it. Yeah, is it freenode.corona or free?
I think it's. I'm not sure. I think you just select Freenode as the server.
Okay.
Or
It's Freenode.
Freenode, yeah.
I will put a link in the show notes. I know we've talked about that in the past, but yeah, it's always there's always new people coming to the community, and if you've never been in there, it's a great place to get help. I mean, you never know exactly who's going to be on, but there's a lot of regulars that are out there, and it's kind of interesting. If you want, there's the forums. And of course, the forums are monitored. Rob and Brent, do a great job, and then Ed and Chris. I know you guys and Sergey. You guys are always in there. But the IRC is a great resource that gets overlooked for sure.
Looks like Seaburn Games put in the link there on the chat too, if you need it.
Okay, awesome. There you go. All right, guys. Do you have anything else before we head out? Nope. All right.
I want to say that I'm preparing the topic about pixel perfect config glue that I showed earlier. So it will be on the website. And I kind of want to recommend you guys one application for Mac is to organize your applications in, in the launch bar, in the menu bar. So you don't have, and you can sort them. It's called A Launch. Let me put a link in the.
And this is for what?
This is the chat room. Is to organize your applications in your Mac so they're not just one mess in applications folder, and you can sort them like a start menu in Windows, for example.
Oh, cool. All right.
All right. Yeah, definitely check that out. I love organizational tools.
Help.
Yeah, anything that speeds up. Yeah, I see what you're doing there. You've got you can create your own custom shortcuts to things.
That's cool.
That is cool. All right. Well, I'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. And that's it. Thanks, guys, for being here. Thanks for spending time with us. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the links. And we'll be back here next Monday, 12 p.m. Pacific, to talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. Till then, have a great week and happy coding.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
That was wrong.
We're still live.
Bye. I know it.